As you saw in the previous film, the shutter speed on your camera is used alongside the aperture to control exposure. But you can also make use of the shutter speed to take a bit of creative control over motion. And if you get it right, you can add some real drama to your images. To demonstrate how the shutter speed can freeze motion, I'm going to take a picture of my young friend Wilfie as he cycles across by this wall. I'm going to pan the camera a little as he cycles. To freeze the action, I need a fast shutter speed. Now, I'm already in shutter speed priority mode, so I'm going to choose a shutter speed of about 800th of a second. That should be plenty to freeze the cyclist. I'm just going to take a quick photo to see what exposure the camera gives me. Now, I can see that it's showing the word low in the display, just where the aperture should be. Despite that warning, it still allowed me to take a picture, but it is underexposed and too dark. The reason for the low message, LO, is that because I've set such a fast shutter speed, obviously reducing the amount of light coming into the camera, it wants to use a wider aperture than the lens is capable of. I think this is a Nikon only message. Canon and other cameras may display a different message, or none at all. It's only a warning. So, apart from giving up and going home, what can I do about it? If you've watched a film on the exposure triangle, you'll know that three variables work together to control the exposure. They are shutter speed, ISO and aperture. Well, I know the shutter speed I want already, and that's 800th of a second. I want to keep that as it is. I also know that the camera wants a lens aperture beyond its maximum, and that's why I'm getting this low display in the viewfinder. So that only leaves the ISO. What I can do is bump up the ISO to increase the camera sensitivity to light, and that will make the low error disappear. So I'll increase the ISO from 100, which is what it's currently set to say 400, and then I'll try again. Okay, so let's try another shot. Now I've got the following settings: an 800th of a second shutter speed, aperture f5.6, ISO 400. Okay, here he comes, looking good. Well, as you just heard, the camera was in a burst mode, so I was able to take a few shots as he went past. Plus I had continuous focusing set, and you'll notice that I panned as he went past. The picture has come up pretty well. Wilfie is nice and sharp, and with a sharp background. The problem with all that sharpness is that it doesn't really convey the motion as he cycled across the scene. It would look better if he was fairly sharp against a blurry background to give the impression of movement. To do that, I'm going to slow the shutter speed right down to about a 50th of a second, which will allow more of the movement to show in the image. However, it will also allow more light in. But as I'm in shutter speed priority mode, the camera will automatically close down the aperture to keep a good exposure. I've now come up against a similar problem to last time, but only the other way round this time. The aperture value on the LCD is now showing as high, HI. The camera can't close down the lens far enough to balance out the slow shutter speed. It's allowed me to take the photo though, but it's way overexposed and so it's too bright. Now that's mainly due to the fact that my ISO is still set to 800 from the last shot. So I'll dial that down to 100 and try again. Now I've got the following settings: 1/50th of a second shutter speed, aperture f11 at ISO 100, and I'm ready to try again. I know a 50th of a second is about right because I've just tried this shot about a dozen times while we weren't filming. Okay, so I cheated a little, but not really. You do have to practice and try things out until you get it right. Okay, Wilfie, I'm ready for you. As you can see, Wilfie is still sharp, and that's because I panned the camera at the same speed as he was cycling. But the background, the wall, is now blurry, giving the impression of speed and movement. I think you'll agree it looks more exciting that way. So that gives you an idea how you can play around with shutter speed to control motion.